The media debate erupted when Bill Barr tapped the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, John Durham, to investigate whether the FBI acted improperly in launching its surveillance of Trump campaign advisors and Russia. Reporters asked President Trump whether he was behind it.
Did you ask your Attorney General to launch a probe into the Russia investigation?
No, I didn't ask him.
Did you know he was going to do it?
I am so proud of our Attorney General that he is looking into it. I think it's great. I did not know about it, no.
Molly, the press is widely casting this as a partisan move by Bill Barr, responding to Trump's prodding by giving him a second investigation, which is being framed as kind of payback for the first Mueller investigation.
Right, and I just want to say at the outset, the media are not in a position to cover this phase of the investigation because they were complicit in the Russia hoax. They either fell for it or they participated in it. They're not in a good place to actually look at some of the interesting actions that are happening.
Well, what should they do? Refuse? Not talk about it?
I think they should actually come to terms with how poorly they handled things in the previous years, just becoming willful leak receptacles for a Russia collusion story that turned out not to be true. There were some of us, very few of us, who were looking at the same sets of facts and same information and were skeptical that there was treasonous collusion with Russia. But that does not describe the vast majority of reporters, and they haven't come to terms with that failure.
Well, and there may be serious questions of FBI misconduct here. We'll see. But that's being overshadowed, I think, by the press's portrait of William Barr as Trump's personal lawyer, which he told Bill Hemmer in an interview Friday that it's just a tactic to denigrate his reputation.
Well, I think he's suffered. We have the latest Fox poll. People really have questions about his behavior here.
Since you mentioned that, who do you trust more on Russia? Mueller, 40%, Barr, 22%. Also, right. Mueller, 45%, Trump, 27%.
Right, and I think that there's an important point to be made here. Molly's right. You could say lots of journalists went overboard. But here's my feeling as a journalist. The idea that Russia interfered in our campaign, had more than 100 contacts with the Trump campaign. If I'm a journalist and I'm working the street, I'm working that story. That's the President of the United States. That's a threat to our Constitution, to our form of government.
By way of example, there was interaction between Russia and the Hillary Clinton campaign. That didn't get investigated at all. In fact, a Russian source dossier was used at the highest levels of our government to secure wiretaps against American citizens.
We can go down that
the idea that you would not investigate that is ludicrous, and the idea that you wouldn't be interested in it as a journalist.
Of coverage of the Steele dossier, but that's not the issue. The issue is Russia threatening our election and our form of government. That's a big story.
I want to get Beverly in here. Is there a parallel universe aspect to this? By which I mean, conservative commentators have denigrated the Mueller probe, and they have, which of course Trump calls a failed coup, and have just sort of hungered for this new investigation. And on the other hand, liberal commentators remain fixated on the Mueller probe, except they can't get Mueller to testify, and are dismissing this new probe as, just politics.
Yeah, well, I think the American people are looking at all of this and trying to figure out what is what. This is the third investigation now that that's open to look into what's happened. I think what's funny about it all is this attack on William Barr. I don't think Barr cares about the attacks on him. He's not doing this, as Representative Adam Schiff said, the Trumpification of the DOJ. I actually really think he cares about the integrity of the DOJ. And the reason why he's doing this is he wants to restore the public confidence in this institution.
Presumably, spying or surveilling a political campaign should not be done routinely. We already know through some journalism, because of the New York Times reporting recently, that there were overseas intelligence assets run by domestic surveillance experts against the Trump campaign. The idea that you would just say, nothing to see here, we don't need to look into this, is absurd. Of course, Attorney General Barr needs to look into this, and that we all need to be satisfied that protocol was followed.
Well, I know Chris Wray is the head of the FBI. He's a Trump nominee, and he says he knows of nothing of any kind of spying. James Baker, who was the lawyer, says nothing.
This
is just...
You guys are going to have to take this outside, but I have one last question for Juan, which is, with the president again saying he's not going to comply with any of the House Democratic subpoenas, and they don't get a do-over, though Congress has its own responsibilities. For all the media spotlight on impeachment, even Jerry Nadler now seems to be falling into line behind Nancy Pelosi, is saying, well, we'll investigate but not impeach. So was the coverage of the impeachment chatter too much? Was it wishful thinking?
No, again, I think that even whether you're for it or against it, it's so important. The idea that we would impeach a president, we don't do that very often. And the idea that the Democratic base favors impeachment is without argument. It's like 70% of Democrats. So this was a very real prospect, given that you now have a Democratic majority. If they did this, by the way, it would have been political dynamite, because it would have inspired the Republican base as well as the Democratic base.
I'll answer my own question. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking involved in the impeachment coverage, but we shall see. Juan Williams, Beverly Hallberg, Molly Hemingway, great to see you all this Sunday.
Joining us now. now author of the #1 bestseller, The Russia Hoax, The Illicit Scheme to Clear Hillary Clinton and Frame Donald Trump, Greg Jarrett, and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. All right, Matt, I want to go to you first. Simple question. It's not that hard. What exactly do you know is happening and coming out? Meadows, Trey Gowdy, what do we have?
I believe we are days, if not weeks, away from the most compelling evidence in the biggest political scandal in American history. Hannity viewers have known from the beginning that it was the dossier funded by Democrats that really fueled this investigation. But Comey and Brennan and Clapper, they didn't defend the dossier because it was written by a known liar, as you pointed out in your monologue. So instead they pivoted and said they had all these legitimate concerns about George Papadopoulos. Here's what we're going to learn. Yeah, we had heard from an unverified foreign source that Papadopoulos might have been talking to some Russians. So there was Western intelligence sent to spy on Papadopoulos, and there's actually a recording and a transcript of that conversation. And there, Papadopoulos denies any illegal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. So they had evidence, presumably, that was against Papadopoulos and for him. And what they'll never be able to defend is that they never presented that evidence to the FISA court, a court where there's no defense attorney.
Everything we know, that they were warned. They were warned by Bruce Orr, August 2016. They were warned by this woman, Ms. Kavalak, at the State Department 10 days prior to the signing of the first FISA application. Now, we know on this whole new level you're describing, then they're withholding exculpatory information from the FISA court to spy on an opposition party campaign?
Absolutely. This is what Attorney General Barr means when he talks about them putting their thumb on the scale. The government has an obligation before a secret court with no defense attorney to present all of the exculpatory evidence that they've provided, all the exculpatory evidence. Here, they only presented evidence that would cast people associated with the Trump campaign in a bad light without their multiple professions of innocence. Now, Comey and Clapper and Brennan are all going to say, well, Papadopoulos might have known he was being surveilled when he said none of this stuff was actually happening, but there's still no excuse for why that didn't go before a court, and I'm sure Greg Jarrett can explain all of the laws and rules that they broke in
well, why don't I just let you
fraud.
host the show, Gaetz? I mean, you know, by the way, I have a friend of mine in the studio, and that's why I was talking before. Go ahead.
Congressman Gaetz is absolutely correct. There's an extra duty that the FBI, James Comey, and Sally Yates at the DOJ had when they presented their warrant application to spy on somebody. If they have exculpatory evidence, they have to provide that. Not only that, as you've pointed out, all of the information has to be verified. If they discover later on that it's not verified or they were wrong, they have to immediately notify the court that we got it wrong, you must now reconsider. They didn't do any of that. That's a fraud on the court and five other felonies.
It is a premeditated fraud. It is lying by omission, not highlighting who paid for it.
Right.
It's not verified. They were warned twice, maybe 3 times. They withheld exculpatory evidence. This is the highest level to, one, impact an election and the outcome.
Right.
Also the person that they saved from clear indictment. Number 2, this is then an opportunity that they used to try and take down a duly elected president.
It is rank corruption. It is using your law enforcement office to target somebody for political reasons and lying to a court in the process. It's abuse of power, it's perjury, it's a false statement, it's obstruction of justice.
How did so
all of
few
those
people
things
pull this off? Let me throw that to Matt.
Well, it's easy to invent a lie. It's even easier to spread a lie if there's nobody there to challenge it. And this is an ex-party hearing in front of the FISA court. Nobody on the other side to look out for Carter Page.
And Matt Gaetz, either Comey lied when he said, oh, she told me to call it a matter, or Loretta Lynch lied. One of them lied under oath. Which one? Pick one.
Well, I mean, clearly you've got multiple circumstances where Comey was lying, and obviously this is why Comey is attacking our great Attorney General Bill Barr. Bill Barr is asking the right questions. We're going to get down to who committed these crimes, and my suspicion is that it roots back in the Obama White House.
And remember, he said it was verified in October, told Trump, oh, it's unverified but salacious. He lied there one of those times.
I don't know how you get out of that one.